Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Leslie Landis. Leslie has a background in psychology and is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Leslie's also been a legislative assistant to a U.S. senator, a teacher, financial planner, a bank trust officer, and an associate director in television. And to this awesome list, Leslie now adds author, one who takes the wealth and breadth of her experience to create a remarkable novel, Chendell, A Natural Warrior. Let's meet Leslie to find out how we can live our life to make the world, the planet, a safe and healthy place. Leslie Landis, good morning. It is really so wonderful to have you join us today.
Well, thank you, Kate. It's my pleasure.
And I am really so thrilled to be having this conversation. Not thrilled because this is the condition that we find ourselves in with our world and our environment, but thrilled that, we have people, especially our youth, really focused on wanting to make a difference, wanting to be that source of change. And certainly in your work, you're definitely finding that. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And I, too, I find it really so gratifying that young people can, are involved and are interested and, are working to make a difference. I think they've given up on the older generation. They've decided they better do it themselves.
And rightly so. And what is a little disconcerting is that in my youth, I was finding this to be an issue and I felt like I was doing something, but then I don't know that I would say I got complacent, but life just kind of takes over. And while I still maintained wanting to do my part, it wasn't making a huge change. But I think our youth have a different energy about it.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, basically we would expect young people to just be thinking about, their futures, getting an education or, training or whatever for a job and what they're going to do with their lives. And that's what they should be doing. But, unfortunately, the situation has gotten so extreme and they recognize that, and they've become very active in the environment, in gun control, in things that they can see, as I said, adults, legislators aren't addressing.
Yes, it gets so political and just so convoluted. They come to it with fresh eyes, fresh energy, and they want to just cut through all that stuff that's weighing it down.
Right, exactly. Well, they'd like to see some action.
Right.
Who wouldn't?
And it's multifaceted, but I guess really it still comes down to the core of environmental issues, because when we look at what is going on with the climate, it is all these other things that we're doing in terms of our multi-car families and fancier cars that use a lot of fuel. That's one of the issues, but then just the way we use energy in general. So it is multifaceted.
Oh, absolutely. The way we use everyday items like plastic, it's pretty scary. And, getting back for a second about the youth of today, it's so important that people do something because otherwise they feel helpless. If you don't try and take some action and get some action done, you're going to feel helpless. And what does that lead to? Anxiety, depression. That's not healthy.
And in your work, because you professionally, in one aspect of your profession, you are a licensed marriage and family therapist. So have you encountered this with young people, with youth in families?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I mean, there are those who because of social media, they jump on board or they start something. And they don't feel helpless. They feel, empowered and that they can make a difference. And then there are those that as I said, do feel helpless. And you do feel, I have seen depression and I have seen anxiety. Like, what is their future going to be like? They're the ones that are going to live in this, globally warming world with extreme climate change.
And we find just all the different disasters, the whole kind of gamut of what has gone on, from the forest fires to the hurricanes and tornadoes that have gone on, just excessive rain, excessive cold, excessive heat. Here, even in the Northwest, in the Puget Sound area, we've seen that warming where we're having hotter summers than I remember, say, 15, 20 years ago.
And where I live, where we usually have the most mild winters you can imagine. I mean, they're still relatively mild, but it's been much colder this particular winter anyhow, and rainier. We're getting your weather.
Yes, we're seeing that kind of global change going on. And for young people to be experiencing this and thinking of so much of their lives ahead of them and what's it going to look like, when they feel inspired to take action, then we all benefit by that, of course.
Oh, totally. You know, it's the unpredictability. I mean, we all want to be able to have some degree of predictability in our lives. Nobody can have a crystal ball and know everything about the future. But, generally speaking, if you're a farmer, you'd like to know that you're very likely to plant your crops. They're not going to be washed away, or there's not so much rain that you can't even plant. If you have a house in the woods or in an area where fires could come through, you'd like to know that that's not going to happen on a regular basis, that you have a good chance of your house still standing. I mean, all those things, floods, and as you mentioned, the tornadoes and whatever, they make our lives so unpredictable, and it's another reason why people feel anxiety.
So that is an important piece of it here, the anxiety, the stress that can lead to depression, hopelessness. This ultimately, it affects all of us, but for children and for teens, for young people, what is it doing to them?
Yes, because they know they're the ones who are really going to experience this future. I mean, I'm a bit older, and while it's going to affect me to a certain degree, it's not going to be my whole life. It's going to be their whole life, and they know that. They're totally aware.
So they are aware that change is there. Having lived through it and thinking for sure of Northern California, and last year with that horrific forest fire that demolished the town of Paradise,
right.
Thinking of those kids losing their school, being displaced all over, it has that deep impact where we have to appreciate that what they will suffer as a result of that, it'll differ, but PTSD would certainly be pretty common, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. Yeah. That what people experience when they go through some horrendous environmental disaster is very often PTSD. And that stays. They found that even years later, it's still affecting them that way. They're still suffering through that kind of emotional and psychological feelings and problems that come with PTSD, which is depression and anxiety and fear, being very fearful and, always worrying and always feeling unsafe. And, those are all things that come with PTSD.
So this has so many layers to it. And with PTSD, I guess some are, maybe we're affected in differing ways. Would you say some are not really touched by it? What are we looking at in terms of that?
Well, if you take a situation of war, and they have found that, some people do suffer PTSD from what they experience, which, is a horrendous experience. And some people don't, and they're not sure why, really. I mean, there are a lot of theories about why it affects some people more than others. But again, I think it's the feeling of helplessness, unpredictability in our lives that makes some people, much more prone to being affected in such a way that they would get PTSD. But I think to an extent we all can experience it. You can get PTSD just from being in a car accident.
Yeah.
So, but those situations, in a way, we all sort of know the risk. We get in our car, there could be an accident. If you go to war, of course, that's an obvious, risk that you're taking. But you don't think that climate is going to be, something that's going to affect your life immediately and maybe forever.
Precisely. And the one thing that occurs to me thinking about that is for, say, taking the situation of a tornado in communities in the Midwest that have experienced that, for us who have not, to be compassionate, maybe in the way we look at that, what we might do in terms of reaching out to help, or just even the kinds of support we might send out messages about that and support through, say, the Red Cross or different charities, is to have that compassion come through so people, it may help them to know that they're being cared about.
Yes, that they're not alone. That's always incredibly valuable. That, other people care, that people maybe have had similar or same experiences and have gotten through it. That's incredibly valuable to people. And what else is incredibly valuable is helping people prepare for the possibility of a disaster. If people, if they live in Tornado Alley, I should say, if they live in Tornado Alley and they have, they have supplies stocked up and they have a basement or a shelter that they can run into, they feel, again, they don't feel as helpless. They feel more prepared. If you live where there could be possible wildfires, but you have prepared for that by being sure you're on the alert system, that you're prepared, your documents are, and what you would grab, and how to evacuate, and, your plan is in place, you can better cope with these things than if you're totally unprepared and you just, haven't thought about the fact that they could happen to you.
And that's such a valid point. For any of us, we are located in different kinds of disaster areas. Here, they talk about the big one and the potential of earthquakes. Not just the potential, we've, of course, experienced them. To know that if something really serious happens, so that you have all your important documents all collected into some kind of safe container that you can easily find and take with you somewhere.
Absolutely. Or at least, a safe that you think might manage to get through it all. Yeah, the young people we started talking about, there are those that feel helpless and there are those that are taking action. And it's the same thing with all of us. If we, in some way, take control and prepare ourselves. Do we have our earthquake kit? I, too, live in an earthquake area. I'm on the West Coast, too. Do I have my earthquake kit prepared? Do I have, my evacuation plan? Or will I know enough to get under something in case there's a major earthquake? All those steps helps me feel a little more confident that I can survive this. Mm-hmm. And it won't be an earth-shattering. It will be earth-shattering, but maybe not an earth-shattering disaster for me, hopefully.
Yes, I guess that's the hope. If we make some plans, if we think ahead, we'll still be shocked by it potentially and probably, but to have some kind of control will make us feel a little more empowered to be able to lead or give assistance to others.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you have also taken another tact, I believe, with your work on this and your thinking about it by now writing about it and coming out with this wonderful new book. Is it Chendell?
Yes, Chendell, A Natural Warrior, and it's spelled Chendell. And there is a website, Chendell.com, and the book is available on Amazon. And pretty soon, there'll be an audiobook available. And I'm so excited because we had two actors read the audiobook, two actors who are really active in the environmental movement. We had Adrian Grenier and Alicia Silverstone.
Ah.
And that should be available within, I hope, another couple weeks to be downloaded. So thank you for mentioning my book. And it is a different tack because I have created a superhero who is fighting environmental battles. So he's fighting, a real-world problem. And as I say, one battle at a time.
And I think the genre of a superhero, we're so into that. It just seems to be growing. So I think that was a very wise decision, or maybe it came to you and you just followed that inspiration, whatever it was, though, Leslie. I think that's a great way to do it. And of course, making these two young heroes, young, precisely, showing that what they are going to do in terms of taking on these challenges.
Well, it's true. And, it's funny because one thing led to another in my plan, or my book, my plan for my book, because I feel that a superhero is really an expression of our best desires to solve our worst nightmares. So, of course, I think my worst nightmare is climate change and all these natural disasters that we're experiencing to the extreme now. And I thought, what kind of powers can I give a superhero to fight these? And I gave my superhero natural powers that come from the earth. And, things that I didn't want to just make them super strong or this or that. I wanted them to have something unique. And so I thought about powers that can come from the earth itself. For instance, one of them can actually, I hate to use the word control, I should say direct insects. And insects can attack bad people, as we all know. Uh-huh. They often attack good people, but in this case, they only attack bad people. And one of the other characters can communicate with plants and trees, and can direct plants and trees to do things too. So that just was so natural then to have them fight for the environment, because it's the environment that's given them their powers.
Oh, it's full circle. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And also, of course, having them as these young people, there's such a connection, a resonance that occurs. And from that, as we do that, as we resonate with that, I think we can feel then empowered, like, oh, I have this idea. This is where I can see myself acting. I can see that it will definitely really capture a lot of attention. And isn't that kind of your idea, is to make this a series?
Oh, it is a series. I'm actually working on book 2 now. And, I hope, besides the fact that the book is fun and has adventure in it, it even has some romance, okay? Besides all that, I hope it does resonate with people that we all can be a superhero. There are steps that we can all take that can make a difference and hopefully prevent, climate change from being extreme. They say we have 10 more years before the tipping point is reached. Well, let's do something in these 10 years. Let's all of us, use less plastic, try and put pressure on our legislators. Do something here that can make a difference in our world. And I believe if we do something, it can make a difference. I really believe that.
Well, it certainly is going to do something, whereas if we do nothing and we keep doing business as usual, then we're certain to go over the cliff.
Oh, totally. You've totally nailed it, Kate. That is so true. There's an African saying, little by little, a little becomes a lot. So I'm hoping that besides enjoying themselves, people take away a little bit of message from my book and do their part, whatever it is, a little something to add to making a difference.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be some grandstand performance to begin. Find something that is simple. For me, some years ago, instead of having 2 vehicles in our family, we decided to have just one and use more public transportation. And, at first it feels awkward, but then it can be more and more natural to do that. So we can find ways that can be rather simple for us. And as you say, Leslie, little by little,
Yes,
it'll grow.
absolutely. Don't use plasticware. Don't use plastic bags. Bring bags everywhere. Say no to the plastic straws. I mean, use a reusable water bottle. And I love your example. My husband and I just went down to one car. We realized we weren't driving that much, that we needed two cars. And we're almost always together when we're in a car anyhow. So, and we feel great about it. It's working out fine. It's surprising, but it is true.
And, the thing with something like that, it has a way of rolling forward where there are savings involved. We're not spending as much when we cut down the number of vehicles we have. In so many ways, it just begins to pay back, and then the environment is better for it. There are fewer cars on the road, hopefully, because we still see too many cars on the road.
True. Well, and I have to share with you that we bought an electric automobile too, and it's fantastic. And we love driving by the gas stations. We love it.
Yes, because that gas mileage is almost, I would want to say, astronomical.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're not putting money into somebody else's pocket in another country. We're keeping it here.
So there we see, again, that savings enters into it. And as you said, like with the plastics, having reusable bags, when we go to the market where this is one of my more recent lessons. Don't buy too much produce at one time because then I'm ending up throwing it out. What a waste that is on so many levels. So if we have our reusable bag that we carry to the market, we don't have to get plastic or even paper there, right?
Totally. Something that's recyclable and won't end up in the ocean. Oh, that's another sad story. But all these things that you just mentioned and I mentioned, I think that they make me feel like I'm doing something, and I'm sure it makes you feel like you're doing something, and that takes away that feeling of helplessness. We're contributing to the betterment of the planet and to the environment, and I don't feel as helpless. I'm sure you don't either.
That's right. When we are doing something active, then we're being part of the solution.
Exactly.
When we're doing something active that is along that positive vein, it definitely is making a difference. And then we feel more optimistic. And then I feel what happens, different opportunities present themselves as to the next thing that we can do and the next after that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I think, I'm not trying to be some grand person here, but if people see other people bringing bags to the market, bringing their own bags, they say, well, you know what, I can do that too. It's hopefully spreading the feeling of being able to do something to make a difference.
Right. Yes. And so that's it, encouraging each other, kind of reaching across and maybe even complimenting someone on, oh, nice bag, this is great.
That's a good idea. I'm going to try that one.
Yeah. Yes. And I have to confess, what I need to do, I have a number of them, and they're readily available here in the Northwest. There's lots of ways to get them, is to remember to always bring them with us. Don't.
Yes.
I sometimes fail in that regard, but I'm getting better.
I have a note stuck on my steering wheel of the car. Remember your bags. It's like anything, it takes 30 days to make a new habit. That's what they say.
Yes.
And it certainly takes at least 30 days. So if you keep doing something and trying to remember, after 30 days it will become a habit.
Right. And this way it also, with our younger generation being so much on the front lines with this, just knowing, it's their future that's really in jeopardy here. By seeing, an older generation also there aiming to do what we can do, I think, is encouragement and adds a little bit of oomph to their journey and to what they're trying to accomplish.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware of the school climate strikes that's happening around the world.
Yes.
And I love their signs. I love the signs that some of them I'll just repeat to you. You know, one of them is, "There's no planet B." "The sea is rising and so are we." And "Denial is not a policy." But I just wrote a blog and I added my suggestion for a sign that I feel that all young people should wear. One that says, "I'll be a voter in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years," whatever it is. "And I'm going to vote you out of office if you don't do something about climate change." And so that's my suggestion.
That's a great one. And again, being that support and encouragement, lauding what they're doing. And of course, I feel part of what you're doing as encouragement, Leslie, is of course this book. Using these two young heroes,
Yes.
hero and heroines in
Yes,
it,
they are,
Chendell, right?
Yes, a young man and a young woman. And, they both are very equal in this fight. And they take an interesting turn in it, which I don't want to divulge.
No.
Hopefully your listeners will be inspired to read the book and find out what happens to them.
So let's mention the website again as one source to find the book and get more information.
Yes, it's Chendell, again spelled Chendell, A Natural Warrior.
And so it's Chendell.com.
Yes.
Yes.
A Natural Warrior. And as I said, I have a website, and it's a really fun website. I think it's very, very interactive and interesting, and I think people will enjoy it.
Another good reason then to get to the website, engage, connect, because your blog is there. We can just get more up-to-date information.
Yes, it is there. There's several different articles there, but I just started adding my own voice to the blog, and I'm continuing. I've already written 3 more, which will be posted very shortly.
And so it's constantly growing and evolving.
Yes, totally.
Just as what we need to be doing, because as you mentioned a little earlier, Leslie, that we have basically 10 years, which is in one way still a lot of time, but really it's just, a flash too.
Oh,
so there's no time to waste. Today is the day to get going.
It's 10 years is a blink of an eye.
Yes.
And it's just gonna, and things are just, what is that? Where it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger, faster and faster, and goes faster and faster the bigger it gets.
Right.
That's what this is all like, and we just have to really make a change now.
And
all of us.
Yes, so we make that change, make that snowball something really positive. So as it rolls along, it's going to make reversal happen.
Actually, I guess it's not the best example, because with global warming, the snowball is melting before it even gets to the bottom.
Well, there is that. That's true. But we get the metaphor of that. We have to capture what that is.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and the bottom line was greatly that we want this to just be a movement that really begins to escalate and make that change so that we still have this planet. I love that. There's no planet B.
Right.
There is a planet for our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
And us, and
yes.
I love our planet. It's a beautiful place. Let's keep it that way. I like to breathe clean air, and I like to drink clean water. I think all of us do. This is our only home, and frankly, I don't think Mars looks that appealing. We all need to work to make this, last, and the environment work for us, not against us.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly, for one, appreciate so greatly your passion, Leslie, what you are doing. And certainly, this book is a great way to get the message across, and people will read it and get from it what they need, and we can all move forward to positive change.
Well, thank you, Kate. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
And I with you. Thank you, Leslie Landis. And with that, we are at the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Leslie Landis and Sunday Morning Magazine with Laura Adams and Julie Garner, imploring us to be safe when we get into our cars. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I'll get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Click on the On-Air tab, then Sunday Mornings, and there look for the show and guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of thinking of the health and well-being of each of us in all the ways that we connect. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069.